Welcome once again to a special edition of the Business of Social podcast powered by STN Digital. I'm your host, David Brickley. This is another panel edition. I've had a lot of fun hosting these panels. Man, it's just been a lot of knowledge that I've gained. I know I've got a lot of great feedback by a lot of the viewers and listeners that they've really appreciated all the knowledge that the leaders across the space have given during this time. So it's been awesome. We have another panel for you guys, and you're really going to enjoy it. This one is going to be a little more intimate. Myself, Nick, and Sean, it's going to be the three of us really talking shop about business and the industry as a whole. So again, my first guest is Nick Woodhouse. He's the president and CMO of Authentic Brands Group. They own celebrity license deals, fashion, athletic wear, Sports Illustrated, just a lot of brands that every single one of you probably own, or Shaquille O'Neal, Muhammad Ali, some names will that I'm sure you're familiar with. Some of your heroes will. Nick Woodhouse is a part of.
They have some strong names on the roster.
Strong names. So if you don't know about Authentic Brands Group, do a quick Google search and you'll see just how much they're involved in the industry from a retail standpoint, athletic, fashion, but also some major celebrities that they oversee their licensing deals, which is awesome. So I'm excited to talk to him. And then Sean Robertson, he's the director of partnerships at Dish Media. Going to talk a lot about Dish Network and Sling and how they've been able to leverage that product that they spent so much time gearing up for this new, this new era. And now, like we've talked about on a lot of panels, this has really accelerated the need for digital, for streaming, just for more tech. And this has kind of like been a crazy time where a lot of people either need that, A, or B, they've now been educated on how to use those different products. So it's going to be fun. Thanks again to Will for setting it all up, but you're going to enjoy it. Once again, Nick Woodhouse, the president and CMO of Authentic Brands, and Sean Robertson, the director of partnerships at Dish Media. All right, so we are excited for yet another panel series, really digging in with industry leaders and breaking it all down for you, the viewer and the listener. I am very pleased to be joined by Nick Woodhouse. He's the president and CMO of Authentic Brands Group. We also have Sean Robertson, the director of partnerships at Dish Media. I would like to give you both a chance to just give the viewer and the listener a quick rundown of your role and what you oversee day to day at your respective companies. Nick, I'll start with you.
Terrific. Thanks, David. Very happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me on this panel.
Of course.
Authentic Brands Group was, we actually just had our 10th year anniversary. We are founded on the premise that there's a lot of terrific and nascent intellectual property whose value had yet to be unlocked, or there was intellectual property whose value needed to be re-unlocked. And, if I want to fast forward to the 10-year anniversary, which, as I said, was 3 weeks ago, we've now amassed north of 50 brands that we own. And those brands are made up principally of 70% of lifestyle brands, things like Juicy Couture, Nine West, Vince Camuto, Barney's New York, and about 30% in the entertainment space, we own the Shaquille O'Neal brand with Shaquille. We own the estates of celebrities like Marilyn Monroe, Elvis Presley, Muhammad Ali, and most recently purchased Sports Illustrated. And my role is I'm the president, so I run the day-to-day operations of the company. I'm also dual role chief marketing officer in the company too. I have a background in retail. Started selling on the sales floor when I was 16, and kind of never looked back. And that was in Northern Canada, and at various roles in companies, and moved them along the way. And our company, from a digital standpoint, we were one of the first early adopters of using digital as a marketing play, and probably as far as digital marketing goes, our biggest claim to fame is we have over 235 million social followers amongst all of our networks that we actually, whether it's a tweet or whether it's a post on Weibo or WeChat or a TikTok video, we do it all organically in and out. So there's my long answer to your question.
That's awesome.
of what I do.
I appreciate the context. And yeah, I want to get into, again, you mentioned celebrity fashion, athletic wear, you guys oversee a lot. So when this whole COVID thing happened, I'm sure there was different recipes for different verticals that you guys had to kind of tackle. But Sean, I'll throw it to you to give the viewers and listeners a quick breakdown of all that you oversee day to day.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Dave. And congratulations, Nick. Sounds like you guys have done a lot in 10 years. So that's no small feat. So congratulations on that. I've been working with Dish for 9 years, so I'm 1 year shy of what Nick has done in 10. But Dish, 30-plus-year-old company, 37 years now of delivering content to households within the United States. And, much like Nick was talking about how they identified a void in the marketplace, we were launched under the premise of there's a lot of households in the U.S. that want good quality content. And we, were founded by a chairman and founder who's still involved in our business, who looked to deliver that content to the Midwest and the southern parts of the United States that weren't connected. That's evolved. And, so Dish Media Sales was the in-house division of Dish Network. We were launched about 12 years ago. And we wanted to take ownership as we evolved our technology and found new ways to work with our advertising partners and ad agencies. And what that resulted in about 9 years ago now, we launched addressable television. And that was the digitization or changing the process by which we connected households and delivered audiences with advertisers. And fast forward 5 years ago, looking around the corner and seeing how content was being consumed by the likes of Netflix and Hulu, we took our ability to deliver live linear content, news, sports, entertainment, and launched Sling Television, the first live linear OTT service. And I was involved in the team that helped to launch that and make that available to advertisers. And we became a leader in the programmatic space. So, we've been a content leader, we've been a technology leader from an advertising standpoint. And my role sits in a very interesting place where I align our product and our services with a lot of our competitors or complementary brands. So I manage all third-party sales relationships and then also look for new technology and opportunities, working with our biz dev team, working with our strategy team and our product team to identify those opportunities and bring those to life, both for our sales team internally as well as some of our partners.
That's awesome. And as you guys know, the reason I wanted to connect us and bring this knowledge and content to the people, if you will, is really just, there's been a lot of heartache. There's been a lot of challenge. There's been a lot of terrible news that we've all seen. And, it's terrible what a lot of families are going through. But, with that, trying to focus a little bit on the silver lining and what we learned as leaders and how we became, stronger during this pandemic as people, as humans, as family members, and as business people as well. So I want to start there, and I'll start with you, Nick. Just what immediate challenges, if we take ourselves back to March, I believe it was 10th or 11th, and the president comes on, the news and says we're shutting down borders and we're, shelter in place. What's the immediate challenges with so many brands and so many verticals that you guys are in? What's the main thing that kind of came across your desk and stuff that you guys had to pounce on immediately?
A great question. And I think my answer is probably going to be how everyone felt at the time, because every day was another punch to the face, right? Because you didn't really, I don't think any of us, for me, it really hit home like many others when the NBA decided to cancel games because, you're like, is this real? Then you're like, oh, well, when my wife told me that it was in the news, I said, forget it. It's not, what are you talking about? And then, wow, it really happened.
Especially when so much money is involved. Like when Vegas shuts down, you're like, oh my God, this is like historic, right? And
that cascading effect of implications, then of course you're thinking of things that you never thought of because it's truly is a black swan event. And, when our private equity partners or founder of the company, Jamie, when he says, what are we going to do? And my answer was, well, I've never run a model with zero revenue because that is, that obviously is not something that exists. So the initial challenge for us was, how are we going to support and help our licensed partners and store and office associates through this first and foremost, before we decided what to do, on the other side of the business. We certainly do not have a black swan proof business model. Nobody does. But we do have a business model that, because we disrupt businesses, we're able to pivot quickly. And we're not very, being stoic is not something that we are good at. We're very, very nimble. So I would identify, David, our biggest challenge was, how do we first and foremost support our partners throughout this? And I know we're going to get into that a little bit later in the podcast, but the idea of not knowing what tomorrow was going to bring was the biggest challenge for us, because, were malls really going to close? I mean, there was a time when that was, I was incredulous. Malls aren't going to close. Yeah. Malls close. Okay. What are we going to do? Right. Stores close. And then, as we all know, we all heard that, okay, it's going to happen on this day. We're going to open. And then now we're at the point that no one really knows.
Yep.
right? So I think that is the thing that has been the biggest challenge is how to be nimble and to be quick on your feet, knowing that, if there's a second wave tomorrow, we know what's going to happen in the stock market. We know what's going to happen with the rest of the world. I read today that South Korea opened schools on Tuesday and they closed them on Thursday because of another wave, So I think that it was our biggest challenge is kind of not knowing what's next, but at the same time, how do we support our partners around the world?
Yep. And then Sean, what about for you guys too? Because in the TV space and with people, going on unemployment and losing their jobs and potentially, canceling memberships but also, factoring in that you guys have a Sling product that's a little bit more on the tech side, but would love to hear when all this stuff went down, kind of how you guys started to tackle those challenges.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing was to make sure that we address any of the concerns and issues that would have come up from a personnel standpoint, right? Being a national organization, we have offices throughout the country, and so much of our business is about the relationship, being face-to-face. I can't tell you how many meetings that I have in Manhattan that are face-to-face. I'm in somebody's office, I'm in their workspace, I'm in their conference room, or you're out entertaining, breakfast, lunch, and dinner several times a week. You're sitting down feet from your clients, and that's where you build a relationship and the trust. So transitioning from that, and I immediately, and prior to COVID going into effect, I'd spent a month in some internal training in Denver. So I'd been in Denver for a month, back and forth. I probably took 12 flights back and forth over the course of late January into February. And I was due to go back the Thursday before, like you said, the announcement was made and the country started shutting down. And my first thought was, we've been through this before. Hurricane Sandy was something that affected us where our office is in Lower Manhattan. We had to immediately adjust. At the time, we didn't have this nimble workforce. So we were able to do a quick test run, get people out of the office, start to address some of the workflow and how we structure and parse out work. And then, of course, being in a sales organization, you're concerned both about the business, your team's health and your personnel, but then also your clients. So there's the business to be done. But as I'm now sitting and looking, peering into my clients' bedrooms, living rooms, I'm seeing and hearing their kids for the first time, there's business to be done. But I want to make sure that I'm also making that personal connection, not diving directly into a sale. So it was looking after that. And then, of course, minding some of the plans, best laid plans. We were looking very strong. We had a very robust first quarter. We're looking at the financials and had to understand and adjust expectations. But with that also, I read, and like everybody else, I've been super active with podcasts and reading different books and articles, Harvard Business Reviews. And one of the things that I read that really resonated was you don't come out of a crisis by thinking about what's next. You come out by thinking about what's 6 months from now, what's a year from now. When this is all better, what is the expectation of business and how do we back into that? Because to Nick's point, this is a shifting yard line. We keep on, initially we were told, mid-May seems so far off. We're going to open in mid-May. Well, here we are past that, and we don't have a timeline. So it was also managing those expectations and getting the team adjusted and our clients adjusted to the idea that this is going to be a very fluid situation. We want to be accommodating, but we also want to make sure that, in our B2B side of the business, we're minding the shop, and in our B2C, because we're also a brand that's in people's homes. You sign up for television service with Dish or traditional DBS or Dish, terrestrial service. Somebody comes to your house and goes onto your roof, and they're in your bedroom and your living room. And we have to change some of those expectations. We are a bit, again, nobody is, black swan proof, but with the launch of Sling, we do have some versatility. And I'll talk a little bit later about some of the offerings that we put out into the marketplace, understanding the needs of customers who are losing their jobs, people who are being furloughed or laid off, people who needed live news, right? There were no more sports. And we were in this interesting dichotomy of a surge in television viewership, but so many brands had to be responsive and pull ad dollars out of queue. So deals that you were negotiating or you were in the process of negotiating were now put on hold. So you had the perfect opportunity to reach consumers, but they weren't. You were reaching viewers and audiences, but you really weren't reaching consumers because of where we are as a country.
Yep. I want to get Nick kind of tangible, and I think you mentioned to me you guys have over 5,500 plus stores, and you obviously kind of go into business defense mode when all this goes down. I think for most companies, right, even as an owner, as a leader myself, everybody was bleeding, everybody was being affected by this, but you want to try to stop the bleeding as much as you can. And some companies went bankrupt. Some companies, laid off the majority of their employees. And as leaders, I think that's what we look at is like, let's make sure, even if that is a reality, let's make sure we stop the bleeding as much as possible. So, well, there's certain things that you look back at that you guys were able to pivot quickly that you're super proud of, or just something that you're glad that you moved as quickly as you did on that front?
Yeah, we had the foresight, because we're a global company, and if you think about it in waves, when things were really getting tough here, our stores in Korea were reopening, right? So I think that's what I'm very, very proud of our international team to kind of provide that international insight of, listen, it doesn't matter what socioeconomic situation you're in. There's some things that are similar. So, human behavior and traffic patterns, when they're almost identical to what we're experiencing now, because we have roughly, north of 300 stores reopened in the US in the last couple of weeks. And we're seeing the same traffic and sales patterns that we saw in Northern China, Southern China, Korea, and many other places, that the Philippines, Indonesia, as they reopen. So, we were able to use that modeling to provide a lot more predictability on staffing levels and also staff safety, and knowing what was going to be required to make our customers feel safe, and also, of course, to make our associates feel safe. So that's one. Another piece would be this, diving into Zoom culture with the team. And I think, I don't know if it was Gary Vee or someone told me, that you don't, I think it was Gary. Yeah. He said that, you don't, in these situations, you don't rise to the occasion. Your true self gets uncovered. And I think that's so very true. And I give kudos and credit to those individuals who kind of adapted to this quickly. And, similar to what John was saying, that people, and I don't know some of our team's situations. I didn't know that it was he or she was a single parent and has two kids and, is all alone. And it allowed me to have empathy to say, like, hey, Nick, I can't do this right now. Why not? Well, that was my normal response in the office. Like, I've asked you to come to a meeting. You got to come to the meeting. And when they say no, and they have they feel they have the right to say no, and I'm able to be empathetic to understand that, that I get it, right, in this situation. So kudos to them to be able to stand up and say, I can't do it. I've got to look after the kids, and hopefully we're giving the right answer. All of our teams giving the right answer and saying, I understand. Come back to me after, because that's something that you would deal with that sporadically if a child was sick at home and someone had to leave or couldn't come in.
Now it's a daily occurrence. Yeah,
it's a daily occurrence. Yeah. And yet they're able, when they put the kids down, to come back and answer the question at 8:30 at night. They don't need to, but they do. And that to me is that's very impressive. And there's it also shows those that maybe aren't able to pivot to this work from home. And I would say to them, it's a tough reality that they're going to have to face. That this is if Mark Zuckerberg says that, and these highly digital communicative companies are saying that 5 to 10 years from now, 75% of their workforce are going to be working from home. Yeah. Those people better learn to pivot. And I think pivot and disruption are overused words, but this is exactly what this is. So, I'm proud of our international team and what they were able to show us as far as modeling. And then secondly, I'm proud of those associates and individuals who are able to kind of adapt to the Zoom culture. And let's face it, because we're all going through it, it takes an incredible amount of focus to be able to work from home. I don't care whether your name is Steve Jobs or whatever you are. It takes an incredible amount of focus for everyone to not be distracted by when you walk by the fridge or when, right? It's normal. And I think getting out of that work cocoon that we all get so comfortable with and be able to focus is an incredible feat for CEOs, for anyone, from CEOs right down to associates. And I think that I give great credit to those people who can provide that deep and narrow focus on their job while being in the confines of your home.
Yeah.
And let's say I'm in Miami. It's 90 degrees and I'm 100 feet from the beach. Trust me.
Yeah. Let me take a walk.
Yeah, exactly.
I apologize to both of you for, I'm sure, what is your 10,000th and one Zoom call, but I figured it's the best platform. We know it well. Sean, what about you? I mean, you and I talked about pivoting with your workforce because you guys are based in Lower Manhattan. Automatically, everybody had to go remote. But I guess from a product standpoint, a business standpoint, what did you guys pivot or move quickly in order to, again, like I mentioned, stop the bleeding as much as possible from a biz standpoint?
Right. One of the things I was really impressed with Sling was that we pivoted very quickly to an effort called Stay in Sling. Right. When the country was messaging in on a state level, you were seeing it being messaged to stay in, do your part, stay in. And so we launched an initiative to allow a free trial for a month. Typically, we'd allow a 1 week free trial of Sling, but we made the product free for a month. And as a business, we're still incurring costs. We have broadcast fees that are part of our business model to distribute. So every time we sign somebody up, we're making money, but we're also paying money to our partners. And this was saying, listen, for folks that need news, for folks that are on the go, if you're a first responder, you don't have a service that allows you to get your content, especially from, what everybody was glued to at that time, the news networks. We made that initiative free. And then that's evolved into something that's called Sling Free, right? Where we're taking more content, including some of the news channels and entertainment and long form movies and such, and putting that before the paywall. So that for folks who have lost their job, the idea, it's really smart from the standpoint of it is allowing our advertisers to get greater exposure. It's allowing our product to be trialed for a longer period of time. So the hope is that if you sample the product, you see how good the service is.
Right.
Once you're back in a situation where you want more content, you'll pay for it. But certainly for folks who can't afford it, it's a great option to be able to have the service and be exposed to it. So I think that was done very well. And again, we had to manage some of the workflow between our offices in New York, Chicago, Denver, LA. We had a corporate ethos, right? When a lot of firms, Yahoo, IBM, started to champion work from home, we practiced together, we played together. A lot is done in person within the walls of Dish. But we pivoted quicker than I could have ever imagined the company to enable IT services to, within days, I had a camera and a new screen in my living room, and I was set up to be able to be, work from home and function. And this, you being flexible with schedules. There are a lot of emails internally that I won't respond to until way after my kids are asleep, and I can settle back. So there's the work to be done that has a tight deadline, but again, there's flexibility and fluidity in how we're doing things. And then from our support staff on up, I've just seen a massive response of folks. Sometimes just for my own sanity, I'll get an email out at midnight, and I really don't expect anybody to respond to it. And there it is, 12:05. It's like, yeah, okay, got it. I'll have that report. I mean, no, go get some rest. I was just trying to clear my plate, so I've now had to start setting emails to not be delivered before 8 o'clock.
I've been scheduling my emails because I do the same exact thing, just so they don't feel like they have to answer it right away.
Yeah, but I think everybody, there's this heightened sense of duty and responsibility, and for some folks, fear. Right, that's very real.
100%.
When you're reading in the trades, in the press about job loss and furloughs, that's real, and it's compounded by the fear, whether somebody's immediately dealing with the impact of COVID within the household, or just the fear. Right? There's a lot of mental health challenges, and the company really did step up in a big way with that too, making folks aware of services we've had in place through our healthcare packages for a long time, but really surfacing that and having some town hall meetings so that our staff knew that they weren't in this alone. For that person who's a single parent, for that person who lives by themselves, I think the worst case scenario is, what was the best case scenario before? I live alone, I have all the space to myself. Now that's a nightmare scenario, right? I talk to folks and I'm like, when's the last time you went outside? I have a guy on my team who lives in Chelsea, great area of New York. But when I say to him, you got to get outside, I'm not going outside. Amazon is my exposure to outside because they deliver everything. So it's just doing those sort of mental health check-ins. And I think our team is connected on a personal level with our counterparts more than we ever have.
On that front, Nick, I want to dig into what we learned in terms of leadership and teamwork. One thing I did, I don't know if this was the right move or not, but I let my staff know pretty early on. I said, we're in wartime mode. This virus is coming after our jobs. It's coming after our company. It's coming after our clients, and we got to fight against it if we're going to, thrive rather than just survive this. I guess, anything that you guys did pretty early on or you're continuing to do that you just learned from a leadership standpoint, kind of being thrusted into this thing?
Discipline, discipline, and discipline. We are an incredibly disciplined organization in how we acquire companies, how we compensate our employees, and how we run our day-to-day business. And we've been fortunate to have success because of that discipline. So, everything from, let's face it, I mean, the number one issue every company is facing is liquidity. And, all of us who own or run companies, you pay money to people and you receive money from people, right? And those were the two biggest topics of the day for everybody on this, no matter, and by the way, even if you're home and you're retired, you're like paying rent and, 401ks and everything, right? Yeah. Sadly, it does come down to liquidity for everybody. And we were incredibly disciplined on how we handle our incoming liquidity and outgoing liquidity. And, I think we've been very, very fair. And at the same time, we've been incredibly fiscally responsible and disciplined in costs, and recognizing those things that maybe were, it's allowed me actually to get right down to the nitty gritty. I mean, my partner, and my CFO, who are the three managing partners of the company, we looked at we signed every check anyway, but now I sign every penny of every check, and I understand superfluous expenses, to be honest, that I thought I knew about before, but now I really know about, and I know where every pencil is and what we're going to do.
We're spending $4,000 a month on coffee. I mean, what is going on?
Yeah, exactly. And so that was a big thing. We're already now we're ultra disciplined, and then also, I'm learning what our company can look like post this. When you run it, we really were a startup 10 years ago, even though we're not VC funded. We're bootstrapped. I mean, my partner and I, we own a chunk of the company, of course, but then we're also private equity. So it's Leonard Green, it's BlackRock, and it's General Atlantic. And we're learning right now that as we grew this company, even though we're the second largest licensor in the world behind Disney, we had, we built layers upon layers upon layers. We're still a low cost operator, but we kind of Frankenstein the company together. We're a beautiful ball of duct tape that's kind of put together. Yeah. So I think this has given me the courage to change things in the company. And I think I'm a retailer by trade, and I think of you never could make big change at retail because you're closed one day a year. Like how do you not have that revenue coming in? But now this closure has given us an opportunity to really rethink our business processes and structure, and we can be a lot better out of this. And I can take a resource from here and move it over here. So that is so being disciplined, and also this has given us an ability to mold the company and probably making it not only a stronger company post-COVID, but a much smarter company that we're gonna come out of this.
Which is important, because those smarter decisions ends up saving jobs at the end of the day, which is like people's livelihood, and like it makes you feel good that some of those decisions are gonna do a lot of good in the future. Sean, I know we talked a lot about just transparency and communication and what you guys did from a leadership standpoint, but does anything stick out to you that you learned during this that you'll definitely continue to be part of your leadership as we move forward?
Yeah, I think, we as a fairly large organization suffer from trying to get alignment in schedules, right? And as much as we joke about the Zoom fatigue and the conference call, we would always feel, even with travel schedules, everybody has to be in the room. When can we get people into a room? I think one of the things that we're going to allow is a lot more flexibility about working from where you are. One of the things that I'm going to look to champion internally is really scoping out and looking for talent that may be outside of the regional realm of where we have offices in New York, Chicago, Detroit, and LA, because there will be a lot of displaced talent that's looking for a home. And I think our team has been even more productive. I know it's hard to say, because when you're looking at the numbers, everybody's affected, right? Particularly our clients. But in terms of work output, I'm extremely impressed with how folks have pivoted and how we've been using all the various tools. I'm on Zoom a lot. Internally, we use Google. We just transitioned to the Google Suite in the midst of this. So that's been difficult. And you've seen who's quick to adapt, who finds a bit of discomfort in day 1 and 2, but by day 3 says, okay, I found my stride. I've adjusted my workflow and I'm charging full speed ahead. And really, it's those people who are complainers or who have difficulty that are going to have difficulty throughout, regardless what platform we're on. So, looking at whatever platform our partners are using and the value of, I can't do the face-to-face meeting, but this is so much more valuable than a phone call. And I have to be flexible for folks who can only do phone calls, then I'm doing that. But I've set the standard for my team for a long time that we talk to each one of our partners, each one of our clients every week. So it's not new to have this sort of conversation, whether it's face-to-face, but now this virtual environment, we've gotten to a pretty good cadence. And I think I'm going to continue that, right? Is that I'm not going to do conference calls anymore. I'm really going to look to set up and have a face-to-face conversation via video where I can really engage with people in a deeper way, right? I would be guilty like everybody else of being on a conference call and I'm busy typing away or I'm looking at another email. But now if somebody's engaged or not, and you don't have to take that, $600 plane flight, and that'll still be valuable, right? There's nothing that will replace being in a room and inking a deal or taking somebody out for a meal and spending time. And that's something that we've always done. We've always been very fiscally responsible in how we use the company's resources. But now you'll have that availability, and there's much more of a spectrum in between the two extremes.
Yeah, and one thing I know we both talked about, but what really I'm kind of geeking out about is you talk about educating a population at scale on how to be more tech savvy. Over the last 60 to 70 days, everybody on the planet pretty much has been forced, if you want to hang out with your family or see your family. I mean, like I was mentioning, from the 38-year-old that now opened up a TikTok and is doing dance challenges every week to this 79-year-old grandmother that knows how to operate a video conference or a Facebook watch party and these different things with their grandkids. Like, I think that part is going to be extremely important, not only for how we do business in terms of closing deals like Nick, we were talking about internationally, but also from a marketing standpoint, knowing that pretty much everybody in America now knows how to enter a virtual experience, I think changes the game for a lot of these brands, because that can actually be a lever you can pull now, knowing you don't have to educate somebody how to do this thing. So Nick, with all the international dealings you have, I'd love to get your thoughts on what this time has done to change how we do business, but also change the way we market to our consumer.
Yeah, we have probably the perfect case study for that is Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, Shaquille we've been partners for 5 years, and together we've tripled his business. And Shaquille he's transformed from one of the greatest. I know it's a big debate. One of the greatest basketball players, maybe the greatest big man of all time, to America's greatest pitch man. Right. Mm-hmm. And I get asked this all the time in interviews. Shaquille, does he do too much? And I know, because that's what he does. Right. He is so lovable and affable and gregarious and charitable and giving and funny that he just has incredible comedic timing. Yeah. And the man was made to deliver something on Zoom or FaceTime or Instagram or whatever it may be. Right. And we have, to be honest, we've actually kept a lot of our partners away, because you can imagine the media was like, hey, can Shaquille do this? Can Shaquille do that?
He's bored, right? He has free time.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like everybody else, he's actually not far from me with his kids, taking care of his kids in his home in well, I won't say where I won't say where he is, but at the same time, he's a businessman and he's a grinder, and he's incredibly successful and entrepreneur. So he's like, how can I do this? And the engagement we've had, with people has been phenomenal on all of our partners, whether it's the Papa John's or Krispy Kreme or any of ICI, any of Shaquille's partners. And I think because we had that before, we use that as a way of communicating to people. That's number one. And the second thing is one of the brands we own, Juicy Couture. And we've been able to, because of, the online apparel shopping, which is a good business right now. Principally, people are buying leisure clothes, right? Not a lot of people are buying suits and ties right now, or dresses for that matter, but they're buying sweatpants, and they're buying Juicy Couture tracksuits. And we've been able to really capitalize on user-generated content to, for our Instagram stories and our TikTok, that, people are, whereas there was this influencer culture before, now to me, it's really has shifted to let's call it a curator or creator culture, where these people aren't expecting hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're creating something fun at home.
Yeah.
And they're more than happy to tell people about it, and to be promoted on Juicy's Instagram is that's a hallmark for them.
User generated content.
Yeah. Our UGC is kind of off the chart now because people have time to do it. And what I also think too, it has become a little bit more organic. We know, I mean, David, you're in this business, so you understand that there's always been a question, Shaquille is let's face it, he's a mega influencer, and he's genuine, and he's got something to fall back on, that he's a, NBA champion and whatnot. But, generic influencers, there's always a question of, if you're paid to do this, why am I listening to you? Whereas if Shaquille talks to you, you're going to be, okay, it's Shaquille O'Neal. If he's going to talk to me about free throws, I'm going to listen to the man, right?
I don't know if I'm listening to him on free throws.
Well, maybe I'll tell him you said that.
Exactly.
And now what's happened with this, our UGC, content has the amount of engagement we're getting in it is through the roof on all of our brands. And for sure, we're thinking now of how are we doing Zoom fashion shows, because other people have done it. So, and how are we doing line reviews via Zoom or any type of tablet-based communication? How are we conveying a message of the Nautica brand, where Nautica for 20 years has done a photo shoot on the water, right? It's a brand based in the water, and there's beautiful people on boats. Okay, and how do we do that now? Right? And the question, I instead, when the team said to me, I said, well, what I would say is, how do I not do that now? Okay, here's your chance, right? Because a campaign that's been similar for 20 years is probably not a good campaign. So now we're doing this.
And that was my question for you, for celebrities and your other brands. Like, does this add additional revenue streams and additional inventory that maybe you guys weren't thinking about before, that now kind of props itself up for even more activations?
Yeah, without a doubt, the shift to online, the continued shift to online shopping,
of course,
is certainly something that and don't get me wrong, we're a huge believer in brick and mortar. I mean, we love our stores, but I think this connectivity, I don't know if it was Terry Lundgren or someone, whoever coined the term omnichannel, is, this connectivity between omnichannel is going to be more and more and more. And I think this idea of showrooming is going to be more and more. And I'll tell you just some statistics that even though we're a private company, I can share with you. If you look at our UPTs, or units per transaction, for the stores that have reopened, they're double or triple what they used to be. So people by the way, our conversion rate is so high because people aren't browsing. If they're going to an Aeropostale store, they're going with I need to buy sweatpants. So we're converting them quickly. And while they're there, they're thinking the same thing we are. I don't know if you guys, I don't go to grocery stores right now, but I'm sure the people that do, when you go, oh my God, I used to buy 1 pack of pasta, I'm going to buy 3, right? Because you don't know.
And even in clothing too, like, it's been a while since I bought a new fresh outfit. I'm missing that. I'm just like a dude, so I can only imagine the I like your fit, by the way. Thank you.
But that all those different trends are going to shape how we market to people, and I think we're going to have, without a doubt, we're going to have less frequent visitors to our store, but we're going to convert them more, and their basket size is going to be larger, without a doubt, because maybe if they went to the mall 3 times, maybe they're only going to go once that week. But I think brick and mortar is solid, and they're going to spend just as much, but in less frequent visits. So I mean, all of that, there's 1,000 new points of data we have that we have to kind of put into the filter and consider. That's a better word.
Yeah. It's the all of our marketing plans that we built in Q4 last year have been torn up and thrown out the window, and now we got to redo them for the rest of the year, it seems like. Sean, what about?
Sorry, let me. I'm just going to have this train of thought. I will say too that I do believe that much like the top 10 brands or top 15 brands, throughout this, Dish is going to be just fine, and Slingbox is going to be just fine. Yeah. But there's probably 10 or 20 below that they're going to get squeezed, right? Yeah. So the great brands are going to do well. And to me, it's the same thing as marketing and mega influencers. Listen, love them or hate them, and I happen to love them. The Kardashians and Jenners are going to be just fine. Just fine. Shaquille O'Neal is going to be just fine. Yeah. Jordan's going to be just fine. But those celebrity influencers who are below, I think, are just going to get squeezed, and their ability to move mountains, to convert consumers to purchase, are going to be less and less and less. So there's going to be a big gulf. So I think that's another thing, that the celebrity culture below the megastars. I mean, George Clooney selling coffee and tequila is always going to work because he's George Clooney. But when you get to someone that maybe isn't a household name, I think it's going to be much tougher for us as marketers to figure out how you pull the trigger on something like that.
Yeah, and even for my company, I mean, we're a social first marketing agency, and there's companies that have gone bankrupt, you know what I'm saying, that were kind of in my same competitor list or what have you. So I think every business can increase their market share if they were able to thrive, you know, during this time, or at least, you know, survive during this transition. So I totally agree with that. And I think for Dish too, Sean, it sounds like you guys going to be able to kind of step up as well from a market share standpoint, especially with the investment you guys made in Sling and things like that early on. Now that's just going to be more and more wanted by the consumer.
Yeah, it's such a great brand.
Thank you. And the way we built it was really smart, right? So we really built up our ad stack programmatically. So we wanted to make transaction easy, right? And we did that before the marketplace was going there for video. Mm-hmm. You had long form content, or you had user generated content that you could transact on YouTube and other platforms that were working to do that. But to do that in live linear content wasn't being done before we brought it there. And think about what Nick just said, where as you have a business owner, multinational organization, he knows where every pencil is. He knows where the money's being spent. That's what every marketer is challenged with now. If budgets are being cut, you better know where you invested that money and how you move the needle by doing that, right? Mm-hmm. Not everything's going to be successful on the first go around, but you need that data. You need to be able to close the loop, and that's what we've been doing with addressable television and programmatic TV on Sling, right? So we're able to target users, we're able to target subscribers or specific households. So, not too many people in the market for auto right now, but for those who are, you don't want to just blast, a RAM ad to every household in the US. Who is actually in the market? Who's coming off their lease? Who's still doing mileage? And all that data is available, right? Polk, Experian, and Axiom, our partners have that data. So we're able to target those households specifically. So, folks are still shopping, and you have the two dichotomies. You have your Target or your Walmart, where they can't keep product on the shelf. So maybe they're pulled back from anything that's not an upfront commitment that they're locked into. But for the agility budgets, for the scatter market participants, how are they using those dollars? And to be a partner that is a national player, you're an MVPD, so we're one of the top. We have 2 of the top 10 MVPDs in the country between Dish and Sling. We combine those initiatives, and we're able to help marketers close the loop, and they're able to see between the target audience and then the holdout group, how effective were they by spending their ad dollars with Dish. And by the way, we don't just champion Dish, we champion the space, right? So in my role, I'm partnered with Xandr, which is the sales arm of DirecTV or Warner Media, right? I'm partnered with Comcast, Cox, Charter, all in some regard, whether it's Dish or Sling. We look at where don't we have our sales force designed to be an effective solution there. Local sales. We don't have 1,000 people in local markets to go to tier 2, tier 3 advertisers. So we work with people who do. And what we've been able to do is use our technology to say, look, we can reach a very targeted audience. This is the time that you're not looking for the hammer. You're really looking for the scalpel to reach an audience in a very strategic way. And we've been able to do that.
Yeah. And that's my question for you. Like, do you think this accelerates the ability for brands to really zero in on the exact demographic, Sean? Because if I'm Pampers, I want to go after that 25-year-old to, 38-year-old woman that is a new mother. And, sorry, but the, 67-year-old male probably doesn't really fit in the demo I'm trying to reach. And with programmatic and with digital and actual data, you can reach the zip code, you can reach their viewer habits, you can reach all these things that if you're talking about, let's look at our budgets across the board, you're probably not going to want to throw a bunch of money at more of a broad spectrum, but get a lot more zeroed in.
Right. And to your point, the marketplace was already going there.
Yeah.
This accelerates that, right? The brands that this was a nice to have before, this was an afterthought, was lower in the funnel. We're really moving that much higher, right? We're saying that don't plan this after you do your television strategy, your out of home, your digital strategy.
Yeah, exactly.
This needs to be a part when you're looking at how you're reaching that audience, right? Why would I reach? If you don't own a house, why am I trying to sell you home insurance?
100%.
If you don't own, and we used to use the other, the nice luxury purchases. 4% of the US own motorcycles, right? I happen to be one of those people that owns a motorcycle. So I'd be in market for motorcycle insurance, but for the other 96% of the United States, that's a wasted message.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, for your brands too that you work with, I'm curious, when everything hit, at a home, in arena, conferences, trade shows, all those overnight went out the window. And really the only way a lot of brands were able to reach their consumer was digital, e-com, online. Was that something you also saw with your brands, that you guys had to pivot almost overnight to stop, maybe spending on those traditional marketing levers and go all in on digital?
Not even overnight, to the minute.
Yeah.
To the minute that immediately had our team examine what all those pieces were and rein them in. And probably, some of the toughest were if there was content that was developed specifically for those mediums, right? But that content is sitting there and it's paid for. How do you deal with that, right? And how do you pivot? Again, use that word. How do you switch that to make it, to get it and get those eyeballs in front of people? We're always a low cost operator, but I think of those high fashion houses that had full campaigns, ready to go, with full events ready to go, and wow, it's just one of these. So yeah, we were able to quickly shift and move that to something that is probably more accessible to deliver that deliver that via a different medium. But at the same time, we felt we got pain like everybody else, because if you're a naturally endemic online brand, particularly digitally native brands, you take something like a Casper or something like that, or Warby Parker that's digitally native, you're perfectly suited for this, right? And but if you take something like a great brand we own like Nine West, okay, which is, I'll be honest, Nine West is rooted in department stores. Yeah, it's a department store brand. And it's also a great brand at special markets. It's a great brand at TJ Maxx and places like that, which are on a tear right now. But they're not, by their nature, it's an in-store shopping experience. Mm-hmm. And we had to quickly, and she, the lady who shops Nine West, is not an early adopter of e-commerce. So that represents a challenge. Whereas digitally native brands, you're already there. And now, that being said, the funny thing is, in digitally native brands, they were already, I shouldn't say they, some of them were already burning through cash, right? It was about GMV. It wasn't about EBITDA.
I don't think Casper makes $1 on their beds these days. So
right. So all of a sudden you think about liquidity crunch. Yeah. If your supply chain and everything isn't pinned down, you're still not off to the races if you're a digitally native brand, because your cash burn is going to go through the roof through this. So your GMV, your top line better go through the roof as well. So I think a lot of those digital native brands are also going to face the same struggles.
Well, I'm sure you read the same articles I did, but I think the Gap had a pretty healthy $1.2 billion in reserves, but they were blowing through $850 million a month because their retail sales went down to zero. So, I mean, that's the black swan effect you talk about, where, yeah, it's great if you can pivot and go more e-commerce, but you can't make up an $850 million. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. And listen, some decisions people have made. I mean, the decision that Doug McMillan and his team to buy Jet.com 3-4 years ago, even though they're shutting it down, I mean, it obviously gave them the gateway to grow their Amazon, their Walmart marketplace. Yeah. And, I think they, on Tuesday, said they were 74% up on online purchases. Imagine if they hadn't invested in that infrastructure, even though their stores were open, their store sales would be challenging. And, I think it's something that we, it's a social monitor right now that, the headline that I read this morning was, I think, the billionaires got $467 billion richer through this. And a guy like Jeff Bezos, who basically, it's funny, a man who's going to be, and I'm like, I'm not on a soapbox here, but a man who created a system that in many ways has allowed people to survive, right? In these times, right? And through many times through luxury, is being panned because of that. But at the same time, he's getting richer, which, I get it. It's it's a double-edged sword. The man, what's he going to do? Give his money away? Yes, his stock's going up, but his stock's going up because he built the greatest pipeline And without his pipeline right now, a lot of people wouldn't be getting groceries. Now,
it's a great point.
I don't know. I don't know what the opposite of that is. I don't know what people would do, and maybe we would have figured it out. But it's all these businesses that were smart enough to your point, Sean. You don't look at guys like Jeff Bezos. They weren't looking at 6 months ahead. They were looking at 10 years ahead, right? And that's exactly what he did. And it's kind of coming to fruition now.
And like the whole 2-day shipping, when you're stuck 14 days in your home in quarantine and can't go to the store, that becomes pretty important. That changed the whole industry. Because before it was a natural, as you guys know, 2 to 3 weeks shipping for any item. So that changed the game, and now it helped us in this pandemic.
Sean's business too. I mean, content delivery. Think about it, right? I mean, we're all sitting here and screen time's thrown out the window for my kids, and screen time's thrown out the window for my wife and I. And I am like everybody in the world. I'm devouring by the way, I'm devouring great content. I'm devouring crappy content. I'm like, right? And I think it's
escapism.
Businesses that have that foresight to me are those are the true futurist businesses.
That's it. And to your point, right? Just not even what he did with his pipeline, what businesses around him, the complementary businesses had to do, and what that meant for ancillary businesses or even competitors. I can't sit here and I'm looking out the front of my house 15 minutes without seeing a FedEx, a UPS, or a US Postal Service truck go by.
Right.
So as his business grew and there was this need for delivery mechanisms on a local level, right, that final mile, all the other businesses are benefiting from that, right? Even the later movers like Jet.com and Walmart, they were able to benefit from what Amazon had designed and showed there was a need for.
Absolutely. I wanted to get into remote working, which is a big topic right now. I think, Nick, you mentioned at the top, with Facebook and saying that maybe by 2030, 75% of their employees are remote. Twitter just said you can stay remote indefinitely. There's been a lot of changes over the last couple of weeks here. But would love to start with you, Sean. How do you think, you mentioned to me, you get 4 hours of your day back. You had a 2-hour commute each way into the city, and how much that makes you more productive. But how do you think your brand will approach it? And how do you think it changes the way we work overall in America and maybe even worldwide?
Yeah, I think, we're going to have to very much think about how we continue to engage on a personal level with our customers. When I say customers, I'm talking about the B2B customers, and how we go back and be responsible about it. I think it's going to vary based on region. Our LA office will probably take a little bit longer. Our New York office will probably take a little bit longer to get back to the norm. And we have we're taking it cautiously, and we want to listen to our employees. Some folks are eager. Those that are sheltered in place by themselves are eager to get back into the office. Right. So we're going to be very cautious about how we do that, but also what tools we have in place, and to the point that even after the country opens back up, even after our New York office opens back up, we're not going to be traveling the way we were. Right. We're looking at the bottom line like everybody else, and be responsible. And can you get done with a virtual meeting what you would have done by flying a team of 4 or 5 people to do a pitch? We have to be nimble. We have to be smart with all of our different resources. Things that I didn't use before. I've found ways to use Google Keep to organize my day and checklists and communicate with. So I'm just looking at these different things that have been sitting on my desktop and I've always been able to utilize, but having to find different ways to employ that just so I'm that much more effective. I don't have all the answers. This is really like, the equivalent I gave somebody, I use an analogy. It's like driving through a dense fog at 80 miles an hour and you're getting chased. So you can't slow down. You better keep your foot on the gas, but you got to be, once you see that 10 feet in front of you, you got to be able to react quickly. And that's really the environment.
Well, I think for the businesses and maybe the older school or executives that just were against it completely, this kind of forced them to at least try it out because they had no other choice. And I just wonder, it seems like everybody I talk to, they say, you know what, I'm just so proud of my team for being as productive as they have been. And I don't know, for corporate real estate, I'd be a little shook up right now because, do you need the, the multi-$100,000 lease in the middle of Manhattan, or can you have a smaller shop for kind of like meetings and different things like that, and then you can work mostly remote? So it seems like, I know, Nick, a lot of your brands are retail, and there's always going to be that case where you have to, feel the product and be in there. But do you think just how we work overall is going to change in a big way?
I think so, but at the same time, I think the human condition is such that there will always be something about coming to your office.
Yeah.
And, people particularly
humans like routine, what I've found out. Yeah.
And they also like stuff. Right. And I think of, I live in Lower Manhattan, and I think of, the city, the greatest city in the world. It's been so resilient through so many things.
Oh, yeah.
And I think there will always be that romantic charm of, coming to your office. I don't, by the way, I don't mean for the individual, I mean, even for clients. So I think what you might see is larger. I think it's the same theory I just said, that your top 3 or 4, your Hong Kongs, your New Yorks, your Londons are going to be just fine, because they will always have that. But the other cities that, I think it's going to be polar opposites. It's either going to be the big cities like that, or it's going to be, I'm going to go live on a farm somewhere. But I think the cities in the middle might get a little bit squeezed, because you kind of want, I think you're going to go either one. So for sure, you'd be an idiot to think that commercial real estate people wouldn't be worried right now.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. At the same time, we've said that before. And, you look at 2008, you look at 2001, you look at, where I am right now, I'm in Bar Harbor. And, if you look at prices of apartments here in North Miami, or even in South Beach for that matter, if you look at the last 15 years, they went like this, they went like this, they went like this, they went like this, and you can set your clock by it. So I think, things will change, but at the same time, there's that level of normalcy that the world's going to go back to. By the way, whether it's the right thing or the wrong thing.
Yeah, I think what Sean mentioned too, which will be interesting though, is just people, I guess, expand their horizons on bringing in great talent that has to work remotely, whether their family is based in a different state. Yeah. I think they mentioned like Facebook engineer makes $180,000, but can I live in North Dakota and not pay $6,000 a month for rent? All of a sudden, maybe Facebook doesn't have to pay that engineer $180,000. They can pay him $110, and that changes their bottom line too if they're a little bit more open to it. So it's going to be super interesting. Nick, I wanted to ask you too. You and I were kind of got off a little bit tangent last week on, and you mentioned it earlier a little bit as well, but just how you feel the social media influencer, celebrity culture a little bit. We saw some celebrities that were a little tone deaf and tried to, I guess, somewhat leverage the situation, but did it in a poor way. But I know you feel like this pandemic in a way is really going to change how people, I guess, just perspective and being genuine and making sure you can't just hawk a product just because you have a few 100,000 followers.
Yeah. And again, I go back to to the smart ones and the ones who really are genuine. And I think of, when you, I don't know if you guys watched the Disney sing along, but Ryan Seacrest hosting that, and I think a guy like that is coming off as, or even all those people that are hosting, right? Because you're inside their kitchen, and you're actually like they're not sets, because if they were sets, they would be panned, because why did you leave your house, right? Mm-hmm. You're not allowed to, right? And I think that is what is that. Again, they would only put the mega stars on a show like that, so they're going to be just fine. Again, it's the ones below that I think are not going to be as is my wife going to trust a beauty influencer like she did before? Probably not. But she's going to trust a mega beauty influencer a little bit more, because it's going to. I think it's going to be a little bit more believable. But at the same time, I think we might have talked about this. I think that influencer bubble was bursting anyway. Yeah. Leading into that of what was an influencer, and it was becoming almost comical in many ways. And we actually went to the point where because of our social followers, we created our own internal influencer network or curator network called Winston, where we use those loyal and organic fans of a brand to create UGC, who we know, if you buy Spider ski wear, you're a skier. Yeah. You're a skier. Yeah. So I'd rather have you do that than, or if you're a member of the U.S. Olympic ski team, you're authentic to Spider ski wear. So I think that, those buzzwords like authenticity, like originality, and being genuine are going to be much more believable. And you are seeing those celebrities who aren't tone deaf, whose personalities are coming out, are the ones who are going to win. Jimmy Fallon hasn't changed, right? He's beloved talk show host, and he's killing it the way because he's just being Jimmy Fallon. Whereas other people you're seeing are kind of like, they will be forever remembered. I love Gal Gadot, but she will be forever remembered for the Imagine thing, right? Forever, for the rest of her life. That's something very, very well-meaning, but just did not come across the right way.
Yeah. Sean, I'm interested to get your thoughts. I've been on this kind of tangent as well for broadcasting in general. Do you really need the multi-million-dollar sets anymore? I mean, I think this has really changed talking heads and news. We saw Cuomo on CNN. He broadcasted from his basement because he actually had COVID, and that was the entire show. And he still was able to bring people in and Zoom different guests in. And it's a lot less of a production when you can actually do it remotely like that. So I'm thinking that there's going to be an ability to add so much more inventory on such a cheaper scale. Again, my listeners probably hate me for bringing this up all the time. SportsCenter spent $100 million on their set. And I feel like Scott Van Pelt could do that out of the bedroom of his house if he wanted to, that same type of show. So I'm interested to hear from you if you guys have thought about that there's going to be added inventory that costs less now that maybe allows you guys to attach partners to.
I think there's going to be a mixed bag there. So the first, let me put the disclaimer, we're not in the content game. That's one thing that Charlie Ergen, our founders, made it very clear that we're very good at delivering high quality content in a seamless way. But, to your point, first, let's recognize that there's not a lot of creative content. The big dramas, scripted dramas, they're not filming right now. Yeah. So after they've all aired and we've all overconsumed the reruns, what's going to happen in late summer and the fall? We don't know.
Well, in February, LA had 1,700 film and TV productions going on. In March, zero. So that's gonna catch up at some point, right?
That's absolutely going to catch up. Whatever's not already in the can. And it's global. So it's not even like we can source content from Europe and love the next Downton Abbey. This is globally happening. So content's going to dry up. My prediction is that there's going to be a real thirst for live sports. And with that, how you consume it, right? So you can watch NASCAR, but you can't go to a race.
Yep.
They're saying that the NCAA is going to lose $4 billion between the NCAA and the member institutions, right? The bigger sports divisions, Big 12, Pac-10, Big 10, right? So if I'm a college student or if I'm just a fan of college football, I want to see that. Maybe the production gets so high that there's a camera on every player and I get to have that interactive experience. I just want to watch the quarterback.
Yeah.
I just want to watch the running backs.
Yeah.
Right. That immersive experience is probably going to change, and that will drive up production costs. But it's really going to substitute that need to go to the stadium. Now, again, there's nothing that's going to replace the smell of fresh peanuts and hot dogs when you're at the Yankees game. You still want to high five a stranger. I went to West Virginia undergrad, and we had this tradition every time we win, which is often. We lock arms with whoever's next to you, right? I took my kids to the first West Virginia football game. We played TCU, and after the game, they're locking arms with strangers, and we're singing Country Roads, right? And my wife and I, who both went to school there, were looking at each other like, could you ever imagine when we were undergrads that we'd be back here with our kids having this experience? We can't do that in the living room, right? But in the interim, over the next year, perhaps 2 years, how's that going to evolve? And there are companies now that are starting. They've started with, the digital gaming. We've seen, the games platforms like Slack that are designed for this sort of experience. I think there's going to be a merger between what esports is doing and what traditional sports are doing. I think you're going to see a surge there.
Yeah, you're going to have to feed that that beast, if you will, because, for me as a sports fan, I think the biggest miss is going to be fan reactions. There's something so intoxicating about, like you said, West Virginia, but that pan across LSU. Baseball is such a slower sport. The father giving the foul ball to the daughter. All those moments are going to be gone without fans. And I think sports fans like us are going to be just waiting for that. So the people that can bring that to people, whether it's in the broadcast or whether it's on a second party platform like Twitter or what have you, I think that'll be a big need.
It's going to have to happen. And if the rollout is a reduction in attendance, if you can only have 50,000 people at Ohio State, imagine what the price of those tickets are going to be, right? So that really does squeeze out the mom and dad who want to take their kids at a reasonable cost to a ballpark experience. So, there's going to have to be a surge in the quality and then the cost of that content and the cost of advertising to be a part of that content as well.
But two things too is the XFL, they had a decent product with no fans and they just shot tight and it was a decent product. And then the Olympics, no no other brand is more watched, but a lot of those competitions do not have fans in the stands, and they do just fine too. So I just think some people are saying without fans, I can't watch it. Like, no, it's still going to be great content, but there is going to be that void. I totally agree that
hard. But I don't know. Yeah. Like just thirsting for. I watched the Bundesliga on the weekend, and I tell you, it's hard. I mean, you would have to be a core fan and be so desperate right now for that content.
Which we are.
And by the way, it's terrific that they're doing it. But and I think to Sean's point on fans, I mean, there are no greater fans, to be honest, than global football fans, and I mean soccer fans. Yeah. And I mean, to not have the Bernabeu filled with 100,000 people, I mean, it's going to be. It's a completely different dynamic that might have to happen, but man, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Joe Buck, who does play-by-play for Fox Sports, said they will be piping in fake fan noise, I guess. So we'll see. We'll see if that goes over our head too. So interesting times for sure. I wanted to kind of close on this, and I'm interested to see if you guys have thought about this. 10 years from now, you mentioned, Nick, 2001, you mentioned 2008. I'm still in a lot of conversations like, where were you at in 2008? How did it affect your business? And people have either stories of, rising above those challenges, or maybe some really sad stories of losing businesses and things like that. But 10 years from now, when we look back at this moment, Nick, how did we grow from this situation? What are we thankful for just coming out of this?
I think we're thankful for what this has done for people who are in the front lines, the first responders, and the first responders, the teachers. I've seen the memes. The teachers should be paid $1 billion a year. I was living that meme that on day one of homeschool, both my kids got expelled and the teacher got drunk, right? And at the during class, I say that tongue in cheek, but man, teachers, unbelievable, the patience, the ability that they have to do what they do, obviously nurses, doctors, everybody, even these, again, you see these memes of that, that people whose positions maybe were not seen as super crucial, like people men and women who stock grocery store shelves, now they're heroes. And
but even teachers, like, it's a very small part of their job, but entertaining your child for 6 or 7 hours so you can go out and make, that's it. I mean, what a huge thing.
Come on. Like, I can't even I was so excited to do these math problems with my 5-year-old. I'm very excited still, but man, come on.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I do not have, I was not trained that way, nor do I have the patience to do it. And God bless them that they know how to teach her with 3 + 3 equals. So I think to me, that's going to be a real learning for us that every contributors to our society are each and every member that are pieces of this gigantic jigsaw puzzle that we call humanity. Point. And if there's a jigsaw puzzle called the human condition, its pieces are now different shapes and different sizes, and we should put all those together and kind of learn from this moment. I think that's what people will see, and then secondly, that there is an incredible resiliency amongst this world that, there's so much talk about, hey, whether there's global warming or, we're killing ourselves or we're this or that, but you know what, we're going to be just fine. And it's another evolution of that will hopefully make us do things smarter in different ways. And that's kind of, I don't know if it's biblical, but this too shall pass. And I think I think those are the big things that we're going to learn through this and through all the trials and tribulations.
Two things that come to mind on that statement is when I see people in scrubs, I feel like I want to salute them the same way I would someone in a police.
Yeah, thank you for your service.
Yeah,
I said that the other day. I said that to someone. Thank you for your service.
Yeah,
because I'm sitting here in my apartment and you're battling.
Exactly. And also too, I thought there was like this weird. I mean, whether you believe in energy or religion or what have you, like I think we were all going a little too fast and a little too selfish and just like go and not worry about anything. And like I think as a society anyway, it was very that way. And this is kind of just like slowed everybody down, have good perspective, care about your family. It's really nice to have dinner with your parents and your kids around a table. And that was taken away from us. And that's a serious thing, I think, that we all learned through this. Sean, would love to hear from you, 10 years from now, what you look back on, I think as a humanity, but also business and all that.
Yeah. So it's funny talking about memes. I just read one today that said everybody who gave an answer to where will you be in 5 years from now in 2015 was absolutely wrong. Yes. So, 10 years from now, looking back, what I'm hoping is a couple of things. I'm very thankful for, and we mentioned it earlier, my parents are not tech savvy. And I would always joke with them. In fact, I would force them to buy new iPhones, new Samsungs. I would force them into technology, saying you can't go with so many generations before you become irrelevant. Like, if we can't video conference, that's what the kids are doing now. You're not going to see your grandkids. So I had a birthday earlier this month, and my dad's there with my buddies, with his drink in the Caribbean, with his shirt off on the Zoom, telling stories about when he was a farm boy. And I loved it. I mean, it brought a tear to my eye to see my dad participating with my buddies like that. And that's something he would not have done this time last year, right? So I'm hoping that recognition that while you can't trust systems, this tells us that no system is foolproof. You do have to rely on and use technology smartly, right? And whether it's, you see in the scenarios where there's a natural disaster, you rely on AM, FM radios. You have to be nimble to not just depart and abandon all of our traditional communication devices, but you also can't lag so much. So, I'm looking for, there's still a ton of baby boomers. There are fewer of them than millennials now, but that's still a huge market. I know, as a retailer, Nick, you're looking at how do people consume. You're still in department stores because baby boomers have a lot more disposable income than my 20-year-old son, right? Mm-hmm. He spends almost all his money on clothes, but he has a lot less than my parents do. So I'm hoping that forward-looking adaptation to technology continues. And the other thing is, less of separating the wheat from the tare, staying on track with biblical references, but more so forcing workers, the workforce, to adopt, right? This is really taking people in the deep end. And if you were coasting along before on the merits of the success of your organization or last quarter's business success, all that is gone, right? Yeah. It's really telling people, you're as good as your last performance, but you better be thinking about next month, next week, next quarter, next year, and have a plan in place. And while a plan is important, also be nimble enough to adapt and pivot quickly.
That's awesome. Well, Nick and Sean, I'm so glad that again, if it wasn't for this time, we'd probably be on planes and busy and maybe tough for us to all get together. So I'm thankful for that as well. But thank you so much for sharing the knowledge and all the different stories you guys have with your different businesses, because I think it really provides a lot of value for the people listening and watching. So thank you so much for your time, guys.
Thank you. You guys doing a great job. I appreciate the podcast.
Thanks so much. All right.
Thanks, guys. Great to meet you. See you.
Bye.
Okay.
Good to meet you, Nick. Take care now.
All right, there you have it. Nick Woodhouse and Sean Robertson, man. A really, really great conversation. I really enjoyed how we got into what Nick said, the jigsaw puzzle of business and life and humans in general, like how much the teachers matter for the CEO to go make money and go, do Jeff Bezos type things. And if you have an injury, how you can go to the hospital and rely on a nurse to be there for you. All those things and all that perspective for all of us, I'm sure for you too, has been kind of thrusted to the forefront.
Yeah, a good mix of a lot of appreciation for everyone out there, and also the people who are not working from home, still going to work on the front lines. And what I thought was really interesting is the first two panels were all similar businesses. They all kind of worked in the same realm, whereas these two guys do opposite things, but they also had a lot of the same reactions and strategies to the problem. So really interesting to hear.
I like what Nick said as well. It's like, this is a black swan event. And you can't really prepare for those. So you just have to, and I like what he said from a digital standpoint and moving levers from traditional marketing to digital marketing. I mean, it was by the minute. I mean, as they were getting news, they obviously kind of took the blueprint from their international partners in China and Asia, and that really helped them be able to get ready for what was going to happen to the United States. But just interesting to see how quickly, and again, we talked about this in the last 3 panels in general, but I think it's going to change corporate America in a big way because, like Will, we work with so many clients, and sometimes, again, just to have an alternate color of a logo takes 19 levels of approvals and 14 meetings, and to see that all these corporations were able to shift, like Nick said, by the minute. I think a year from now, people are going to say, "Why are we taking so long on this?" Remember COVID? Like we were able to shift like overnight. Why don't we use that more? And that's going to, I think, make all businesses a lot more efficient, which allows you to make more profit, which allows you to keep more jobs, et cetera.
Yeah. I was trying to think of something else that Nick said. He made a great point where he was in the office and he said, "Hey, I need you to come to a meeting." And you said, "No." It's like, well, what are you talking about? And if he says it when you're from home, it's like, "Hey, I understand you got kids there, you got your dog, you got your family." So just having to shift that mindset as a leader was a great point by him as well.
100%. Well, I'm really excited. They're both out of New York. So once this travel ban gets lifted, and as you know, Will, we're always in New York with our clients, excited to grab some breakfast or a drink with those two gentlemen, because that was awesome. Thank you so much, Will, for helping set that up. All right. So as always, we ask you to check us out on iTunes, 5 stars. I always say we're on Spotify, Will, which is a whole new meaning when Joe Rogan gets 100 million. So if Joe can get 100 million, can he get the Business Social? Man, I don't know.
I haven't got the call yet. I've been waiting anxiously.
If we get a couple $100,000, I may go exclusive to Spotify. Who knows? And then we're on YouTube too, for those of you that want to see the video version. Once again, this has been another panel edition. We're going to start to do these more and more kind of in between our normal one-on-one expert interviews. And also, Will, you and I talked about it. We'd love to get all these panelists back for more one-on-one interviews, because I would love to dig in with Sean more on the tech side and broadcasts and Dish Network, but also with Nick, knowing that like I can do a whole podcast just on their celebrity side of their business, I'm sure. So it'd be cool to like get deeper with all these panelists we've had over the last few weeks, and have those separate hour-long discussions as well.
And I think for subscribers, I know we have a pretty well-connected listener base, if that's the correct word. But let us know if there's anyone in your network or just a general industry that you guys would like to hear from. I think that'd be really interesting to kind of put that out to the audience.
To the people. All right. Thank you so much for listening and making us a part of your day. We really appreciate it. Once again, thanks to Will Kelly, producer Will. Of course, you guys know him well. Dave Furker, who helps us all behind the scenes, set up the studio and things like that. It was nice to be back in studio. And thank you to the listeners for subscribers, for subscribing. Excuse me. Wow. Just really ending this show on a great note. Here we go. All right. Thank you so much. Business is Social Podcast, powered by STN Digital. I'm your host, David Brickley.